Kate Swinzer and I'm a chiropractor in Terry Hills. Today I'd like to talk to you about the 5 reasons your child can't pay attention in school, and it really has nothing to do with their IQ. First and foremost, a child's brain has to be nourished all day long in order for them to be able to pay attention and learn appropriately. And what I mean by that is that they need to have a nourishing and nutritious breakfast and lunch. The best way to do that is to make sure that their sugar content is low and the protein content is high. The reason is that sugar is really sensitive in the body and most particularly in the brain. So when you have a lot of sugar at either meal, what it does is it creates a massive sugar load in the body, which can make you a little bit hyper to start with. And then when you get that sugar drop, which is about an hour to an hour and a half later, it gets really difficult to pay attention because your first thought becomes, I'm hungry. When your blood sugars drop, it's really hard to pay attention. You start to feel that hunger, and also you just start fiddling, you start moving around, and it can be really disruptive to everybody, including the teacher. Secondly, what can be really important is to make sure that your child's spine is being looked after. Now, sitting in class is really uncomfortable because often you're required to sit there for long periods of time. What can exacerbate that is very heavy school bags that you have to carry around all the time, and particularly heavy school bags that are on one shoulder or the other. Now, if you've got a very heavy school bag that's just on one shoulder and kept on one shoulder, it creates a huge muscle imbalance around the body. And that can be very uncomfortable when you have to combine that with sitting still for a long period of time. Good ways to help with that is to make sure that the bag is relatively light and is also evenly across the shoulders. So if they have a one-shouldered bag, then they can carry it on one shoulder for one day and the other shoulder for the next day. But what's even better is to make sure that they have a backpack that's even across the shoulders and not creating a drag that's pulling them backwards. Thirdly, what I find really important is sometimes that their brains are not switched on. And again, this has nothing to do with IQ. This has everything to do with pure neurology. Now, the left brain is the logical, mathematical side of the brain, and the right side of the brain is all about creativity and imagination. Now, often in school, what we're required to do is really engage with that left side of the brain. That can become quite fatigued if you don't even it out with right brain activities. Now, good ways to do that is to make sure that after school they get enough of that imaginative play and or imaginative work, and that could be through artwork or anything creative. Another way that's really helpful is to play classical music when your child is studying. It's been shown that by doing classical music when you're studying, it actually increases the amount of information that's retained, but it also increases their attention span. The reason being is that classical music, particularly without any sound, any singing, Mozart is the best. It really just very gently activates that right side of the brain. So when you're doing a lot of left brain rote learning, that balance across the brain can actually really be quite beneficial. The fourth thing that I tend to find is that sometimes children suffer from what we call brain fog. And this is not isolated to children, adults get this all the time. So if you're sitting there and you just can't quite feel centered, you can't quite pay attention because your brain feels really foggy, that is often due to digestive issues and more specifically to fungus. Fungus is usually starting in the stomach and around the digestive system, but it really does grow throughout the whole body. And when you get fungus in your body, it's really difficult to pay attention to pretty much anything because your body's very acidic and your brain is just unable to stay still. It's very unable to just be still and listen to what's going on. I've helped numerous children and adults pay attention more and actually feel more themselves as soon as we get their digestive system sorted and that fungus cleared. Now, one really good way to do that at home is to give your child probiotics every now and then. So 1 month off, 2 months on, 2 months off, 2 months on, and just take a couple of probiotics a night, and that's really, really helpful. The fifth reason is that sometimes children just don't understand what's going on and they don't feel they have the ability or the confidence to speak up and ask questions. One way to combat this is to literally sit down with your child and talk through their day with them. Even if they don't want to, it can be quite helpful to ask them specific questions about each class. And it could be to do with the way that the information is being taught, but more likely it's to do with the way that they're able to receive information. We have 3 different ways that we learn. We learn visually, we learn kinesthetically, and we learn through our auditory. And if one of those is not working very well, if that teacher is working specifically in that realm, it's very difficult for them to take on that information. There's a very simple test that I do in my clinic to help see whether those 3 are working appropriately or not. But one thing that can be very helpful through study at home is to make sure that all 3 are being engaged. That could be also through playing a little bit of music while you're learning, but it can also be making playthings out of what you're trying to do. For example, if you're trying to learn some maths, go outside and actually use a real word application to it if they're very kinesthetic. If they're very visual, it can be helpful to watch a video or to have a look at more books with them and help them through it in a visual way. If it's auditory, then they might just need to sit down and talk to you about the subject and what it is that they're learning. And sometimes even just by verbalizing what's going on in their class, or verbalizing or reading out an essay, can be super helpful for them to gain perspective about what they're doing. I'm really passionate about helping children be able to pay attention because it can give them the self-esteem and the confidence to do whatever they want to do in life, and that's just an incredibly important part of life for me and in my clinic. I've had loads of people ask me how I can help them more, so if you're interested and you would like to come in, please email me on inquiries@naturalhealthworks.com.au. Just say yes, and I can get back to you as soon as possible and give you some more information as to how your child can pay attention in class and become the person that they really want to be. Thanks for listening.